The Las Vegas Raiders go into Baltimore and beat the Baltimore Ravens 26-23. I think it's officially Minshew Mania season, Tyler.
When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour. When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour.
Hey, Tyler.
Hey, Piet.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Score podcast. My name is Pat. This is my co-host, TYG, Tyler Pratt. Tyler, how we be doing?
We be doing. Last night was a salvage night. Last night made me feel a lot better about how bad Sunday went, and we're gonna have those weeks, right? So, without further ado, though, we'll get into it.
Yeah, I don't know if this podcast could have had a worse Sunday between some bad picks and then both our teams just getting routed.
Yeah.
Cowboys get routed. Rams get routed. Just not even competitive, either team. So not a great day for us. And then I also had the Ravens in my survivor pool. So not an ideal Sunday for your boy. But I am pumped to talk about week 2 as a whole with you today, Tyler. If you're on YouTube right now, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Get at us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We appreciate your support. If you haven't yet, go check out, just dropped a rant, our week 2 rant.
Check it out.
About Bryce Young getting benched as the Carolina Panthers quarterback. I kind of went in on the whole game as a whole on Sunday between the Panthers and the Chargers, and then talked about Bryce Young. I watched the whole game. I went back and watched the whole game. So I watched every snap he took. I just wanted to, see everything for myself because it hasn't looked great out there for him, Tyler. But once again, go back and check that out. But today is about week 2 as a whole, Tyler. But before we get into those games, we got a couple segments. We got our dime of the week. And we got our Gwame Changing play.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get to it. Dime of the week. Shout out to Minnesota Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold, who is now 2-0, leading that team, coming off a win, beating the San Francisco 49ers in his home debut. There's not much greater things in sports, in my opinion, that I enjoy as just a fan than seeing a guy who got thrown away by an organization go back and beat that team. I love seeing somebody get revenge out there. Granted, the 49ers had Brock Purdy. It's not like he was going to be the leader of their franchise in San Fran, but at the end of the day, you still cut him. And he went out there and he took it to you. Outside of, I thought he made one bad decision in that throw. He tried to thread a needle in the red zone, and Fred Warner picked it off. But we're going to talk more about that game soon. Dime of the week is backed up in his own territory, Tyler. Scores 3-0. It's 2nd and 9. KOC has the balls to call a play-action play on his own goal line. Darnold drops back. He feels pressure from the edge. I think it was Bosa coming in on his right side and immediately steps up in the pocket and slings it. And the thing is just a rope in the air, probably 60 yards to Justin Jefferson. Jefferson makes a great cutback to find the end zone. But what a beautiful throw. The cutback was great too, but the throw, Tyler, my goodness. I saw that and I said, that's dime of the week. That is dime of the week. Top candidate right now. And it's the best I saw because that really also set a precedent in that game. And it's like Minnesota's not here messing around, man. Minnesota's here. The defense showed up in that game for him. Dime of the week, Sam Darnold. Next, our Gwame Changing play of the week comes from the Monday night game. Last week, we had a very positive play that changed the game. Javon Holland stripping Travis Etienne, going into the end zone, and it changed the whole aspect of that game. Miami Dolphins came back and won after that play. This is a much more negative play. And it's funny because I was actually lined up to have CJ Gardner-Johnson win this award with the hit that he had, that stuff play where he came out of nowhere and stuffed Bijan at the line of scrimmage, and he just pops him. I told my dad, I was like, you don't see a lot of D-backs in the NFL right now make that play. Just completely, like, all of his momentum was stopped, and he just stuffed them. He did take his helmet off after. That was clear. I don't know how he didn't get penalized for that. They said he didn't, but it is what it is. I was ready to give it to him, man. Eagles, 97% chance to win that game. In the red zone, 3rd and 3. I think there was little over a minute left. Falcons had no timeouts. And you catch the Falcons off guard and you throw the ball to Saquon in the flat. When you could have just, ran the ball, even if you don't get the first down enough times and a tick off where the Falcons aren't going to have enough time to go down the field and score a touchdown to beat you. So I totally understand why Eagles fans would be upset with that. But it's all about the drop because the throw is there and Saquon had it in his hands and it goes through his hands. And you see that win percentage go from 97 down because the clock stopped now. And now you got to go and kick a field goal. And Kirk Cousins has all this time left. And even after that, I'm like, I'm pulling for Kirk. Kirk's one of those guys I'm pulling for. I didn't think he had that drive in him, Tyler, at the end of that game. I really didn't. I still thought the game was over.
No.
And that son of a bitch did it. He drove him down the field and threw the game-winning touchdown to Drake London. So, negative game-changing play nominee goes out to Nick Sirianni and Saquon Barkley. So, congratulations. Give it up to them. But, Tyler, let's get into this Week 2 slate.
Let's do it.
I want to I'm going to hand it over to you, buddy, because actually, let me mention this first. We got to do something about these overloaded 1 o'clock slates that the NFL is giving out. There were 10 games in the 1 o'clock window, Week 2. Do you know how hard that is as a football fan? Like, we're about to go through all of these. We're about to go through all of them. And I'm not going to lie to you. This was the most difficult as any, this was the hardest week to pay attention to every game and know what happened in every game. I had to go back and watch multiple games. But there's still some games where I'm like, I don't really know what happened too much in this. I saw some highlights. I saw what happened on the Red Zone channel, but we have to fix that. You can't have 10 games in the 1 o'clock slate. I hate that, especially when you get a blowout in the late window, like the Rams game. So then basically you just have 2 games in the late window, and then you had 10 in the early window. And there were some good games that I would have loved to have seen more of in that window, and I'm sure you all as well. So they got to do something about that before I go into all of these. Starting out, Tyler, I'm gonna let you sulk about your Dallas Cowboys. A rather old takes exposed moment for you last
Mm-mm.
week, last couple weeks, talking down on the Saints the way you have been.
Oh yeah.
You said they have no shot to win the division.
Mm-hmm.
And then you loved the Cowboys -6, -7, -8, whatever. I liked them at
Yep.
-6 too as well, I won't lie. But you go out there and you get steamrolled, and I was expecting it to get better. I was like, "Okay, they'll wake up, they'll wake up, they'll wake up." And it
Mm-mm.
never happened. Just never
Never did.
happened. 44-19 final score. Talk to me.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about this one for too long. There's not much to say other than the the Saints are just they're protecting Carr, right? It was one thing we mentioned the week before. Panthers didn't get any pressure. Well, the Cowboys really didn't get any pressure either. Much of that game, they were just getting gashed though. Every play, it seemed like Kamara was running from anywhere from like 8 to 12 yards, and on the day, at the end of the game, the Saints still ended up averaging 7.7 yards per play, which is just insane. So, they're the Cowboys offense just, I mean, once they got into a hey, we have to throw it here mode, like the Saints were able to just, send 4 or 5 and have everybody else sit back, and then it was just predictable what Dallas had to do. So it was a very, very bad game. It was a tough watch. Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr right now is playing out of his mind. This is the best football he's ever played in his life. I don't think anybody can deny that. He's got 15. Derek Carr has 15 possessions so far this year, and they've scored on every single one of those possessions. They have not punted yet on a Derek Carr possession. So that's that. Rashid Shaheed has caught 2 deep balls already this year for a touchdown. I think both have went for like 60 some or 70 each. They look good early. Can they sustain this? They're going to come back down to earth eventually, but I want to see what earth is, right? Because right now they're in the clouds. They're going to come back down eventually, but I just don't know what that's going to be yet. Clint Kubiak has done an incredible job in a short time getting them to where they are now. So I'm interested to see how long this is going to last, and then once they average out where that lies. Not much to say about Dallas other than huge letdown. First game at home. Yeah, slap in the face, kick in the dick. I hope it's a wake up call for them. They got their ass kicked. They gotta bounce back, and it doesn't get easier next week at home when they take on Baltimore. So
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Clint Kubiak because that stat line of Derek Carr, 15 possessions, all scoring drives, like that's something special to do in the first couple weeks of the season where you see all of these offenses trying to find the rhythm and get a feel for everything. Kubiak stepped right in there and they got it rolling. Maybe that's all this team was missing was the OC because we know how bad Carmichael was for them last year, and we talked about it all year, and it's like it was so hard to just watch that Saints offense, especially in the red zone last year, and you started to wonder about Derek Carr. It's like, I mean, I like Derek Carr, but do I love Derek Carr? I don't know. Is he just average or is he what is he? But I don't think they were getting the best out of Derek Carr with that coaching staff offensively last season. And Kubiak has stepped right in there, and you see the Kamara reemergence has been something special to watch. And I didn't know if I was ever going to see that again. So definitely exciting for Saints fans because you pair that up with that defense who has the ability to play lights out. Like they have that defense has a pretty high ceiling, I think. But we'll see what happens for them going forward. And then obviously big wake-up call for your Dallas Cowboys. Sam Darnold and those Minnesota Vikings defeat the San Francisco 49ers 23-17. This is a game that I went back and rewatched just because I wanted to know, like, was it like a fluky win? You know what I mean? Did Minnesota kind of just get like handed the win, or did they really go out there and earn it? I just wanted to get a better feel for Minnesota, so I wanted to go back and look at that game. So I tell you what, the Minnesota Vikings outplayed the 49ers that whole game. And I'll tell you another thing. Brian Flores has got that defense flying around. So right now for Minnesota, you're seeing the product of what great coaching can do in the National Football League. Those two coaches right now are doing amazing. And they did it last year. But they just had dealt with injuries last year where they couldn't compete in the end. And they were going through quarterbacks left and right. But O'Connell still got the best out of those guys. And now look what Sam Darnold is doing. He looks like the guy that we thought he was going to look like coming into the draft. He looks so confident out there. Just the way he's present in the pocket and he's climbing the pocket. And his every ball he puts, dude, there's not many throws that he makes that don't look pretty. There's some decisions that Sam Darnold will make that'll cost him, but him is just as a pure passer. He's special. And then he's also pretty damn athletic. Like he can scoot and get 15 yards if he needs to. He's a very underrated athlete. And it's fun to see, man. It's fun to see Sam Darnold reemerge. Like this is the Sam Darnold we were supposed to see. And it's Kevin O'Connell, all the credit in the world to him. And then going to Brian Flores in that defense. This defense sacked Brock Purdy 6 times Sunday. 6 times. And it could have been more. Like I said, I went back and watched that game. There were multiple times where the Vikings were sending heat, drawing something up, or it was just a 4-man front, and they were still getting pressure on the Niners front, mind you. And some plays, they would have Mason in, the running back, to chip, or they keep Kittle in, and they'd chip these guys. Or Brock Purdy would make like an incredible, elusive play to escape a sack. They very well could have had 10 sacks in that game, is my point. They were flying at San Francisco. And I tell you what, nobody thought this team, including us, was going to be anything this year. So they got the mentality of we got nothing to lose and it's us against everybody because everybody counted us out this offseason. Everybody had us finishing last in the division. We're going to go and we're going to ball out. And we're going to bully the San Francisco 49ers. I will say, Metellus, by the way, Metellus is a linebacker in Minnesota's defense. I didn't know much about him, but I watched that game. Stuck right out to me. He's going to be a household name pretty soon. Stephon Gilmore, yeah, he still got it. He put Ayuk in a cage. Their defense is overperforming right now. I don't know if it stays at this level, but with Brian Flores and what he's proven as a coach in this league, I think it might. And I tell you another thing, they got some depth up front. Like I said, they were flying at Brock Purdy. And they are a tough team to beat at home, too. That place is rocking. To go to the 49ers side, I thought Jordan Mason looked really good. Once again, they really found a guy in Jordan Mason. Like, what a luxury to have when your best player, McCaffrey, goes down and you have this guy to just step in, fill his shoes, play that role. And he did a great job. And honestly, 23-17, it could have been worse than that. Because I mentioned earlier, Darnold threw that pick to Fred Warner. That could have put it up 3 possessions earlier. They could have potentially gone up 17-0. And then later in the game, Aaron Jones catches a pass, runs up, looks like he's going to score a touchdown, fumbles at the 1. So the 49ers got 2 breaks there where the Vikings could have got more points. So honestly, Tyler, this game wasn't even as close as the scoreboard says. And I'm not taking this as like the 49ers are not as good, as they usually are. Obviously, they were missing McCaffrey. Debo's now hurt for them too. I'm taking out of this game that no, the Vikings they're a good football team.
I'm not going to overreact to the Vikings kicking the shit out of the Niners. It's just a crazy week of football, right? And we're going to get into a couple of the other games. And I probably should have said this before we started getting into the games, but this is like the first week that we've had this many upsets where you've had favorites of, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 points. Not just not cover the spread, but just flat outright lose, like straight up just lost. So this is the first time since 2004 that there's been this many upsets. And who knows, like, maybe we look back in 6 weeks and we're like, yeah, it wasn't really an upset. But as of right now, it looks like an upset. Again, I know I just kind of said it with Derek Carr and that Saints team. Kind of how I'm viewing Sam Darnold right now. Like, I think he's playing out of his mind. This is the best 2 games of football he's ever played in his life. Credit to the coaching staff and him. I mean, I don't want to take any credit away from these guys. They definitely deserve it. But we all know that people get hot, especially early in the season. Do they level out? I think so. I don't think they can keep this up, especially with what they have. But I'd love to see it though. I really do. I mean, this was a team that was in jeopardy of starting 0-8 because of their schedule that they had weeks 2 through 8. Obviously, they just had to get past the Giants in week 1. Well, they steamroll the Giants, and we're like, all right, well, maybe they can get a couple wins, and then they just fucking kick the shit out of the Niners, who obviously a lot of people have them going back to the Super Bowl this year. They're one of the favorites in the league, and they are one of the better teams in the league. And they just, I think it's one of those. They play them tough. They schemed really well. Sam Darnold balled out, and it was just good to see. It's good to see that they're like this division. If the Vikings keep it up, that North.
This is one of those games where I feel like I didn't see a ton of it. I did go back and watch some highlights afterwards, and there's obviously some plays of note that we got to talk about, and that's the New York Jets defeating the Tennessee Titans 24-17. So first of all, I don't think it was a fluke at all last week, that Tennessee defense. I think this is a real unit. And we saw them early in this game really shutting down the Jets offense. And they had all the momentum. Tennessee had all the momentum in this game. They were up 7-0. They're going down to go up 2 possessions. And what happens, Tyler? Mayo God, Will Levis does it again. I had his back last week defending, him against like what the coach did in the press conference. Like, that was ridiculous, in my opinion, to call out your quarterback like that, especially in your first game as his coach. I thought that was extremely unprofessional. But now you do it again week 2. You're just so careless with the football. I can't stand in your corner anymore, Willie Levis, if you're just going to be giving the game away like that. Because, Tyler, he's rolling to his left, feeling pressure. He's going down, and he flicks the ball backwards. He just shuffle passes it backwards, and the receiver's like, what the hell? Or maybe it was Tony Pollard. I don't know who it was.
It was Spears, yeah. He tried to
Spears.
He was dodging a sack. He like jumped over a lineman, and as he's going down, he tries to like throw it backwards towards the back. Tried to make an amazing play, and he fucked up again.
It's just not necessary. Like, right. You have the opportunity right there. You have all the momentum. Worst case scenario, you bring your kicker out for a chip shot. You go up 10-0. And that's great. That's great for your team. That's great for your feeling. That's great for your fans in the stadium. Everybody's feeling good. And you go from that to, no, I'm going to play hero ball and try to do it all on this one play, and just makes an obnoxious, obscene play at the quarterback position, giving the ball away to the Jets there. So that really flipped this game, I thought. How about the emergence, though, of who's the running back? Braylon Allen for the Jets. This dude might be a real weapon for them. I thought he looked great. He's a great change of pace to Breece Hall, who also had a great game out there on Sunday. Like, this Jets running game, if they get going, and then you just ask Rodgers, like, I still think Rodgers is a great quarterback based off just like the experience, all the intangibles that he brings to your team, leadership qualities. The guy's just been doing it for so long. He's seen everything on like what defenses will do. He's seen it all. But he doesn't have to pass for 200 a game. If he doesn't have to, go out there and throw 3 touchdowns and 250 yards, and they could just win games like this and rely on the run game and the defense and then just use play action. I really like that for the Jets. Is the offense going to have to do more than we expected? I personally am not overreacting. I think the Jets defense is going to be fine. I think they'll get it together. Need to figure out the Hassan Reddick thing, though, because it's like if you're not going to pay him, you got to find a trade, because you can't just have that asset sitting unsigned. And it's like you have that asset, do something with that asset. If you're not going to use it, give it up for something else that you could utilize. But Jets run game, very encouraging. And then the Titans defense also. I feel really bad for that unit because they've been balling out these last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing to show for it right now. Their offense isn't getting it done, and their quarterback's very reckless with the football.
Yeah. And to the Jets D, like, they have to figure that Reddick situation out now, because I'm pretty sure Jeremiah Johnson's done for the year now. So injuries with, part of that D-line leaving over the offseason, they traded Huff straight up for Reddick. They need Reddick. They 1,000% need him now. So I still think that they'll figure it out defensively, but when you take a look at this game, and a lot of people are going to go back, right? Like we kind of just did and said, this one's, if you're Tennessee, like this one's kind of on Will Levis. The kid is not playing bad. He's just not making good decisions. And those turnovers are really, really, really hurting the Titans. Like when you look at the numbers, Rodgers, 18 of 30, he had 2 touchdowns. Will Levis, 19 of 28. He had 1 touchdown. Very similar there. And when you look at the yardage, Rodgers threw for 176, Will Levis 192, right? So like Will Levis just threw the pick and then had that backwards pass, that technically that fumble that he threw at Spears' feet, that was a huge turnover. And when it comes down to it, it's red zone efficiency. Tennessee went 1 for 4 in the red zone. Goal to goal, they were 1 for 3. If you do that against a team like the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, you're probably not going to win. So I think the Titans know what they have on the defensive side of the ball. They know they have a good run game. That offensive line is much improved from last year. They just need to limit the mistakes, limit the turnovers, become more efficient in the red zone, and they can be a problem. As far as the Jets go, like you said, the run game is encouraging. We know Rodgers is just going to get more and more comfortable each game that he gets under his belt with this offense. He's going to build more chemistry, so you're going to start seeing a lot more Rodgers-esque things as the year goes on, and this defense will figure it out, and I hope they do, because spoiler alert, I picked them to win this division, in almost every single division winner parlay I put in because I did not think the Dolphins would pull it off, which they're definitely not going to now. Who knows with the fucking Patriots, dude? I don't even know what to think about that team right now. And then the Bills, I definitely did not think that their defense would be playing to the level that they are now. And that offense, Josh Allen's carrying them. So the division is fucking up for grabs. It's going to be between the Jets and the Bills, but yeah, Jets, I need you guys to figure it out.
And that reminds me, if there is Bills Dolphins fans watching, we did recap that game last week. I believe it was Friday's episode. So if you want to listen to that, go back and check that out. But next one, Indianapolis Colts going to Green Bay Packers. This was a big juicy bet of mine where I was all over the under and hit on that. This was one of the few hits that I got this weekend. 16-10. Green Bay goes to 1-1, and now the Colts are 0-2. Some thoughts on this game. Going into this, Tyler, we talked about last week. We said, all right, well, we got Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen going into Green Bay to face Malik Willis and Matt LaFleur. So we looked at that and we sided with Indy, thinking they were going to figure it out. They were going to be able to run the ball on Green Bay and, take their opportunities when it was presented. That's not what happened. And then Malik Willis, to his credit, on the other side, LaFleur had a great scheme for him. He was very efficient. Didn't ask him to do too much out there, but at the end of the day, he got it done. And they ran wild. Josh Jacobs had himself a day. Green Bay went up in this game 10-0. And Josh Jacobs fumbled. I believe he fumbled on the 1-yard line. So they could have just gone up and it would have been over quick. But that kind of saved the Colts for the moment, that fumble. But Anthony Richardson did not look good, Tyler. I wanna have a conversation about AR because obviously the dude is supremely talented. Mm-hmm. That's undeniable. We get that. He was dime of the week last week for that throw he made to Alec Pierce. The talent, the tools, everything's there. But this was an alarming game from Anthony Richardson. 17 of 34, 204 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. Those 3 interceptions just absolutely kill you. Like, this was a defensive battle, but both teams found a way to run the ball, and it just came down to who's going to make less mistakes. And Anthony Richardson essentially gave the game away, in my opinion. I thought that Shane Steichen also put way too much on Anthony Richardson this game. Like, why are you throwing the ball 34 times? Jonathan Taylor had 12 carries for 103 yards, averaged 8.6 yards per carry. AR only had 4 carries for 37 yards. It's like, you're running all over this team. Why are you throwing the ball 34 times? The game's not out of reach. The final score is 16-10. It was never out of reach. You never had to abandon the run, but you did. And then you gave it away with turnovers, stupid decisions, dumb throws. So that was alarming to me, just seeing the decision-making. And then also the way Shane Steichen called that game. I thought LaFleur really out-schemed him. And then another thing to talk about, this Indianapolis Colts run defense. This is back-to-back weeks where they've just gotten sliced in the run game. Last week it was Joe Mixon, took it to him. And now Josh Jacobs ran all over him. Not to mention Malik Willis had 41 yards rushing himself. This is a real issue in Indy, I think, is this run defense. So that concerns me. And then obviously the decision-making of Anthony Richardson. But going back to Green Bay, what a great win for them in their home debut. The defense played great. Xavier McKinney's fitting that defense like a glove. Like that's shown to be a great addition for that defense. And then Malik Willis got it done. Like that's all you need. You don't have to ask for a ton out of him. You got a great play caller who's going to draw it up and make it easy on him. And then you got the run game. If you could pound teams like that in the run game, it's going to make your quarterback job a hell of a lot easier, no matter who it is, whether it's Malik Willis, Jordan Love, whatever.
Green Bay ran the ball 53 times. 53 rushes to 14 pass attempts. Malik Willis went 12 of 14 with a touchdown. They ran the ball 53 times for 261 yards and controlled the entire game. They had the ball. Time of possession for them was 40 minutes. 40 minutes and 11 seconds to be exact. That is insane. So, yeah, the Anthony Richardson turnovers, those mistakes, they got to, and again, it's for him missing all of last year. Like these are mistakes we should have seen last year, and that he would have been cleaned up going into this year. But obviously, with the injuries last year, he just needs more time, and he needs more reps. And the more that he gets those, the more work he gets. I think, we'll see those lessen. Unless I don't know, because there's some guys who just don't figure it out. But the expectation is that eventually they do, especially when they're young. So, like you said, all the potential in the world. He just has to limit some of those turnovers, and then they got to run the ball more. And like if you're gashing a team and the game's not out of reach, why are you abandoning the run? Either way, you nailed this one on the under. Green Bay did exactly what they thought what we thought they would do. They did exactly what we thought they would do, and they still win. So, kudos to Green Bay. Good job, LaFleur, getting a much-needed win there. Really in a bad spot. So, shout out to Green Bay. Good shit.
Next game. The most notable upset of the week. The Las Vegas Raiders go into Baltimore and beat the Baltimore Ravens 26-23. I think it's officially Minshew Mania season, Tyler. Gardner Minshew, 30 for 38, threw for 276 and a tutty. Did throw one pick, but boy got beat up back there. He got sacked 5 times. Still found a way, though. They scored 13 points in the fourth quarter. And this was one of those games where there was not much really going on. And you were just kind of like, all right, Ravens are going to just kind of, choke this one out and win this game. And it's going to be sloppy. It's going to be ugly. And that's the way it's going to end. Back-to-back years now, Gardner Minshew has gone into that building and pulled off a win. They did not help him much. Run game, Zamir White, Tyler, had 9 carries for 24 yards, and he was their leading rusher. So it was Minshew out there just dictating everything for this offense. It was great to see Devontae Adams get going in this game. 9 catches for 110 yards, had a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And that's when you knew you're like, oh, shit, like the Raiders might do this right now. Brock Bowers had his coming out party. He had 9 catches as well for 98 yards. And he looks like an absolute weapon for that offense. Fun to see. Special talent. That's why I wanted the Rams to trade up and get him. But they were really clicking late in that game, especially. And the defense, we talked about it last week. We were concerned with the Ravens O-line after what they did in week 1. And now you're going into week 2, facing Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby in that Raiders front. Talked about that as a concern. And they were there. Max Crosby, he was there once again. And they had a big impact on this game. And they just never let Baltimore take over. That defense hung in there enough all day to just not give up like those fireworks plays that are just demoralize you as a team. I mean, they even had a missed opportunity in the red zone where they could have scored, and that was a moment where you're like, "Oh, damn, now the Raiders aren't gonna do it now." And they came back from that. So it's like their defense was put in a spot again and again to like, all right, if you fold here, the game's over. And that defense stood up. So shout out to them. But before letting you go, I do want to say it is starting to get a little concerning, this Ravens front offensively. If you have a bad O line that can't protect, is Lamar even going to make it through the season at that point? But once again, shout out to those Raiders. Huge win for Antonio Pierce and those boys. And love to see it for Gardner Minshew.
A huge bounce back because Pierce, he got a lot of heat after on some of those situations where he decided to punt.
And 4th and 1 late, and he punted it instead of going for it.
Yep. And then there was another decision he made too on their side of the field. So it was like, his decision making there, he was receiving a lot of heat for it. So it was a huge, huge win for him this week after last week. But if you would have told me that the Raiders were going to get outrushed 151-27 and they throw for 233 and the Ravens throw for 232, I'd be like, okay, so they lost. Well, if they only had 3 penalties for 15 yards and the Ravens had 11 for 109, that plays a factor, right? And I think penalties was a thing last week for the Ravens as well. So then they had over 100 yards of penalties this week. That clearly fought, because I'm pretty sure they would have stopped the Raiders late in that game, if I'm recalling it correct, and then they got thrown for DPI or something, and then that led to the Devontae Adams touchdown late in that one. So yeah, they gotta do some to address their front. They have to be more disciplined, less penalties, and they'll be okay. They have a big game in Dallas next week. I'm staying far away from that one. I have no clue how to even approach that. But this was a huge win. This was a huge win for the Raiders and for Pierce especially. Good to see, again, Devontae Adams get going, because that was part of our conversation that we've had prior to this week. Like, if the Raiders get off to a shitty start and there's no hope, how long is Adams going to stay in Vegas? So this is big. Hopefully they can, continue to build momentum and keep him there. Because again, I like this team, and I think I took the over on their win total. So big time win.
Next game, Cleveland Browns going to Duval and get a win 18-13 over the Jaguars. So this was a pretty sloppy game. Wasn't a real easy watch. Talking about that Jags offense, last week they were up 17-0 in Miami, and then they didn't score a touchdown in the second half that game. Well, they go into this game and they don't score a touchdown the entire first half. They end up only scoring 1, which they got in the third quarter. So we're going to dive into those Jaguars in just a second. But from the Browns' perspective, first of all, nobody told me Deontay Foreman was all of a sudden the Cleveland Browns lead back, because I went into that game thinking Jerome Ford was going to, have himself a little bit of a day, and he finished with 7 carries and Foreman finished with 14. So I thought that was worth noting, is seeing how they handled that. And then talking about Deshaun Watson, kind of buried the dude last week after week 1. And we said, like, it's time. We got to see something now. And I'm not going to lie, Tyler, if you look at his stat line, it's just 22 for 34 for 186 yards. I thought he looked pretty sharp out there, though. I thought he made some good throws. There were some drops. I know Amari Cooper had a notable drop where he put the ball right on him on a corner route, and it would have picked up a first down. a big first down, and Cooper dropped it. And there were multiple plays where Jacksonville was getting to him. That rush was getting to Deshaun, and he was finding a way to evade, escape, and make a play, just not negative so much. So I thought damage control for Deshaun in this game was very good. Didn't turn the ball over. And then just the accuracy I thought was much better this week. The stat line's not going to blow you away, but eye test, I thought Deshaun played a good game. You would like to see more, though, out of their run game. I just felt like they couldn't put the Jags away. Like their defense just kept giving them chance and chance and chance. Like they were shutting the Jags offense down, and the Browns weren't just like taking advantage of it. You thought like at some point they might run away with this game, but it just never happened for them. It was a very low scoring game, obviously. But then and then the defense for the Browns, got to shout them out. They played a great game out there. They're a tough bunch. But talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, who fall to 0-2 now. As I mentioned, they went a full game essentially without scoring a touchdown, and then only get a touchdown this game. And I know the Browns defense is great. They're really good. They're really talented. You got to be on your P's and Q's when you're playing them. But it's starting to get a little alarming for me, Tyler. I just feel like there's always an excuse for Trevor Lawrence. Everybody always finds a way to make an excuse for him. And it's like, wait a second. If I remember correctly, this was the dude coming out of Clemson who he was the next one up. Like there were Andrew Luck comparisons. There were. And there were talks about this is that next guy in the league. And I even gave him a pass for that rookie season. It was a mess with the whole Urban Meyer thing. Like, throw that rookie season away. I'm completely okay with that. But I'm not seeing that guy, that was promised to us and then to Jaguars fans, obviously. I just don't see the special. I'll see flashes, like the throw he made to Brian Thomas Jr. That was a great throw. And you see that and you're like, why don't I see more of that? I just think it's a combination of things for Trevor Lawrence right now. I don't think that they have the best play caller in the world, not to just give him an excuse. As I say, we got to stop giving the guy so many excuses, but I think they can manage the offense better. And I think Doug Peterson needs to just completely take it over, because it's like, bro, you got hired by Philly when you did because of your offensive ability. The Jaguars hired you as their head coach because they said, hey, we got this kid. He had a rough rookie year. We need you to bounce him back. We need you to get this guy on track. And I feel like he's kind of just not taking that head on, full responsibility. He's kind of handed it off. And I don't think we're seeing I don't see growth from Trevor Lawrence at all. I see very average quarterback play that it's like, yeah, this guy can win games if his defense plays great. And if you get the running game going and he can go off that play action and beat teams that way. I'm not seeing the Trevor Lawrence that was promised to carry an organization, though. You did name the stadium after him on Sunday, didn't you? To Trevor Bank. I don't see that guy, though. I don't see that guy that's, carrying the franchise. At least not right now. I hope to see it. I want to see like that guy that was coming out of Clemson. They were like, this is the next one up, as I said. But we're not seeing it right now, Tyler. Like I said, Browns defense ain't no joke. But the Jaguars, there's some real struggles offensively. And I thought their defense kept them in this game. Their defense has 2 weeks in a row now played over their heads, in my opinion, and shut down some teams. And there's nothing to show for it right now for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I think that they threw for 20 yards in the first half. So you date back to the second half of last game, where I don't think they threw for more than 50. And in the first half of this game, where he might have thrown for like 16, 17 yards. What's the game plan there, right? Like, yeah, if you're doing something like Malik Willis, where you're just dumping it off here and there, running the ball 50 times a game and getting W's, that's one thing. But when you're losing and you're really not even being efficient and you're throwing for minimal yardage. Oh, and by the way, Christian Kirk, who's supposed to be your number one receiver, who has been in your offense for 2 years now, entering year 3, guess how many catches he had? 1. Guess how many yards he had? -1. He had -1 yard on 1 catch on 3 targets. That's supposed to be your number one receiver. So they got to figure that out. And if this continues to happen, Press Taylor's going to be gone rather quickly. I don't think they spin the tires on this too much. I think that he's already gotten enough attention for his lack of, I guess you could call it, good play calling. That's what Dougie's there for. Just give Dougie the reins. He's the head coach. I think I was watching the game with Weed too, and he's talking about how certain times they would split the play calling duties. Like one half Doug would have it and the other half Press has it. What is this, college? We're in the NFL. You're supposed to have your franchise quarterback. You're supposed to have everything you need on the offensive side of the ball and on the roster. I mean, when you want to go through the Jags roster, they got all the pieces. Brent Strange? He should not, other than Brian Thomas, who had the two catches for 94 yards. Your next leading receiver was Strange, 3 for 65. And he almost led the team in targets. Gabe Davis had one more target than he did. What are we doing? What's the game plan here? What's the offensive scheme? They need to figure that out. And the Browns, I think this game to me says more about the Jags than it does about the Browns. We know the Browns have great defense. Deshaun looked a little bit better this week. Their offensive line is banged up. So Deshaun's he's gonna keep having pressure in his face until they can get healthy up front there. Then aside from that, Amari Cooper's had a couple notable drops in both games so far this year. That won't continue for long. He'll obviously bounce back. But the Jags shouldn't even have had a shot to win this game or come back. But on that final drive, the Browns had like 3 holding penalties in a row. They got the first down, holding, brought it back. Got a good chunk, holding, brought it back. Got some more. I think it was minimal yardage, holding. It was 3rd and 34. They were just giving the Jags every opportunity to win this game, or at least tie it up in the end. But it was a tough watch, and you can imagine we didn't stick around for very long after that game ended. So, yeah, that was tough. The Jags, they need to figure it out offensively, because you can't have halves where you're throwing for 16 yards. It's just not going to cut it.
Moving on to the other Florida team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roll into Detroit and beat the Lions 20-16 to go to 2-0 on the season. Wow. They were up early in this game. They could have been up 14-0 very well. They could have gone up 14-0 early in this game if Aiden Hutchinson didn't just completely wreck everything. Dude had 3 sacks in the first quarter, Tyler. And 2 notable ones that were in the red zone that just ruined the Bucs' chances to get a touchdown. And if you take away, Baker was running for his life, felt like all day, just running away from Aiden Hutchinson. This dude I started just watching him. after the snap, I would just watch Hutchinson off of that and see what he would do because he was all over him. But Baker found a way, man. He found a way to get it done once again, using his athleticism, mobility, and just the grit and the dog in him to pick up first downs. He also ran for a touchdown. He juked Malcolm Rodriguez out of his shoes. And the Bucs get it done, man. Shout out to that defense too. Jared Goff in this game, I don't know if you realize this, but he ended up throwing it 55 times in this ball game for 307 yards. St. Brown did show up. He had 11 catches for 119 yards, but that was mind-boggling to me, just seeing the Lions come out so pass happy because of what they have with Gibbs and Montgomery, and it's like both those guys had decent days. It just they didn't have the quantity, they didn't have the touches to really have that big of an impact on this game, I thought. Jamison Williams is really emerging as the second receiver on that team, but I do think I want to point this out. I think they're going to miss Josh Reynolds. I think that they are already missing Josh Reynolds, and he was kind of that guy that would just get open, third down, find a zone, sit down. He knows Jared well from their days in Los Angeles together, and he would make some big-time catches for that team, and nobody would ever talk about him. And I think quietly he's being missed right now, but Jamison Williams has stepped up his game. But going back to the Bucs, shout out to that defense because they found a way to get it done in Detroit. Not easy. Not an easy team to go against. And their defense is banged up too. The defense is pretty banged up right now. And they battled. They battled arguably the top O-line in the league. And we saw what they did to the Rams last week. They just bullied us down the field to win that game. I thought this was just because they beat Commanders week 1. And you could talk them up. But then they go into Detroit and get a win. That's putting a stamp on it, being like, no, this team they're another team. They're just not messing around. The Bucs are a real deal, man.
I think Goff just had a bad day, which sounds weird because they threw for over 300 yards, but you just look at the efficiency, threw the ball 55 times, right? And hey, by the way, if we're throwing the ball 55 times, why is Laporta only getting 3 targets? Right? Let's figure that out. You targeted St. Brown 19 times, Jamison 11. So between your top 2 receivers, they get 30 targets. Laporta really probably is your number. He's your 2A, 2B, right? Him and Jamison Williams, 2A, 2B between those guys. Laporta needs more than 3 targets. So I'm sure they'll get that, they'll get him going. They'll get him more involved. It just came down to just poor quarterback play at the end of the day. They outgained Tampa in this game, I think by close to 200 yards. They had right around 450 total yards of offense to Tampa's give or take 250, maybe even a little less than 250. So time of possession, 34-26. In the red zone, and I'll bring this up when teams are inefficient in the red zone. They were 1 for 7 in the red zone. 1 for 7. You make 7 trips to the red zone, and you only come away with points 1 time. They obviously had that mistake there at the end of the first half where they could have came away with 3, and they had a penalty that ran the clock off, so they didn't even get to attempt a field goal. Shit like that. That they didn't play a clean game, and they kind of deserve to lose this one. But I think if you're a Detroit fan, yeah, that sucks. But you kind of come away with this one a little optimistic. Like Jared Goff had a bad game, still threw for 300 yards. We made it to the red zone 7 times, only got points 1 time out of that, and we still only lost by 4.
Another maybe surprising 2-0 team from the NFC move on to is the Seattle Seahawks, who got a win in New England 23-20 in overtime. This was a bit of a little barn burner in the end here, huh? We had a competitive game. I didn't see a ton of this game. This is one of those that was just kind of thrown off to the side in that heavy 1 o'clock window. I did see the ending though, and then how it got into overtime. But just going back, looking at the stat line, Geno Smith had a great day. He was efficient, threw for 327 yards. DK Metcalf killed him, 10 catches for $129. JSN killed him, 12 catches for 117. Those guys combined for 30 targets in this game. Obviously, they went into this game missing Kenneth Walker, and I thought that was going to be, maybe detrimental to the Seahawks because I said it's got to be Kenneth Walker carrying your offense. And credit to Seattle, I was wrong about that. Geno did a great job going into this game against against a good Patriots defense, and he found a way to get it done without any run game. Charbonnet finished with 38 yards rushing, 2.7 yards a carry. So it was on his shoulders. He did a good job. Moving on to the Patriots. Brissett, once again, he just finished with 149 yards. They're not asking him to do much out there at all. They ran it all over Seattle. Gibson finished with 96 yards. Stevenson finished with 81. So this team is proving once again that they have the ability to run the rock on you. It's just, can they get enough in the passing game? Can they make enough plays downfield to win these games? And I thought that hurt them. Their inability to do that in the second half of this game, I think that was the difference. Seattle was able to do that, and New England wasn't. And I think that's what the difference was. Obviously, it was very close in the end, and it found its way to overtime. I think that defense is talented, feisty enough, and they're well coached by Mike McDonald. And I think that they have enough on offense as long as Kenneth Walker's healthy. I don't think that you're beating a ton of teams in the NFL only getting 38 yards from your top running back. I think that it was fortunate to happen a week where you were playing New England, where an offense that doesn't have that much firepower, and you were able to get away with that. But like I said, promising performance from Geno, and they move on to 2-0, so good for them.
Yeah, New England has, shown what their formula is. They're going to run the ball 30-plus times a game. They're going to ask Jacoby Brissett to manage it and not turn the ball over. And then they're going to play fucking defense. They're going to play hard-nosed, tough defense and make you earn every yard. Geno was great, 75% completion percentage, over 300 yards, only had the one touchdown on a deep ball to DK. But, I felt really good because this was this was the biggest bet that I had this past weekend. My three big bets, Dallas got smoked. Seattle was my biggest, and they pushed. And then the Steelers, which we'll get to, is one of my other ones. But when they had 17 in the first half, I was like, oh, okay. There was 17-13 in the first half. I'm like, all right, New England might get 20, but Seattle's going to get at least 10 points in this. They'll be good. They'll cover. And they had nothing. They did not score a point in the second half. They had to block a field goal and then go down and kick a game-tying field goal just to get this into overtime. So Seattle let this one slip out of their hands, and 9 out of 10 times they lose this game. This was the 1 out of 10, right? They block the field goal and then go down, tie it up, and then in overtime, get stopped, go down, kick a field goal, right? So very lucky to even come out of that with a push. So I feel blessed. What can I say? What can I say? A push is a win in this sport. But yeah, they need Kenneth Walker. I don't know how much longer New England's going to be able to keep this formula up, but it's not bad because I got Stevenson in a couple leagues, so he kind of just fell in my lap. Stevenson was one of those guys where I feel like in every fantasy draft, everybody was passing on him. Everyone was passing on him, and then some guy like me was like, all right, I can't let this guy fall any further. I'll take him. His ADP he was ranked like in the 40s, and we're at pick like 80, and he's still on the board. I'm like, all right, yeah, I guess it's time. I'll bite the bull and take this guy. And he's panned out so far. So, but yeah, that's what New England's going to do. They're just going to run the ball and play defense. What more can you
Certainly
ask for?
has. Next guy, sloppy one. As we predicted, big under on this one. New York Giants, Washington Commanders. Commanders pull off the win. Jaden Daniels gets his first win as a quarterback in the league, 21-18. Giants fall to 0-2. Didn't pay a ton of attention to this game. Not going to lie, Tyler. I didn't want to. Obviously caught some highlights, but going through, just keying in on Jaden Daniels, 23 for 29, 226. Took 5 sacks out there. So he was efficient out there, which is good. But he took 5 sacks. He's hanging on to the ball too long, I've noticed. And he's taking unnecessary big hits. And he's not a big dude. He's skinny. He's little. You can't, bro, he's not going to last. And it's a little concerning right now seeing Jaden Daniels take off the way he is. Finished 10 carries for 44 yards. So it's like, it looks good on the stat line, but it's like picking up those yards and taking that hit is that worth it, in week 2 of your young career? I would just like to see him not do that as much as he is right now, but is what it is. I don't have a ton on this game. Malik Neighbors had a big drop late in that game. That the Giants, they very well could have won the game if Neighbors catches that. And how about Brian Dable going into this game with a banged up kicker, and they didn't have a backup plan? So Gano gets hurt on the opening kickoff, and you have to play the game without a kicker. And it's like, if you have a kicker in that game, you very well could have won, but you definitely could have taken it to overtime at the least. So I just thought that was very questionable decision by that coaching staff to not go into this game with another kicker when yours was banged up, but is what it is. Dan Quinn gets his first win, and so does Jaden Daniels, so good for them.
Yeah. There's not a ton to take away from this other than it was like one, classic two division rivals who aren't great, going back and forth, most of the damage done on the ground, kind of an ugly game. But wasn't really a ton of turnovers. I think there was just one fumble. But yeah, that drop by Neighbors was huge, and he was so good all day. And he just had that one drop. But the good thing is that, you saw his teammates trying to pick him up as quickly as possible because, you get a young kid, makes a drop in a big situation like that, can go to their head really quick. So he needs to shake it off. It happens. But yeah, he makes that catch. They probably win that game. They have a kicker. They probably win that game. So, I thought Daniel Jones looked a lot better though. And I know Dable coming into the week was like, yeah, we need to ease him back into things. They made more of an effort to run the ball. Again, I think he was making better decisions. He was accurate. He made good throws. So he looked better. I thought it was a step forward for him. Jaden Daniels, to echo what you said, I'm sure the coaching staff feels the same way, dude. Just go down. The couple extra yards are not worth it. They're not worth your ribs being broken or cracked and not being able to breathe. So get out of bounds, get down. That's everybody's fear with this kid, is that he's just going to get hurt. because he's doing. He almost did. That was if there was one play where he got hit right up in the ribs, and everyone thought he was done, but he came back in and ended up winning the game for him. And he's got a lot of potential, and he can do a lot of good in this league. He just has to be better about protecting himself. So that's the biggest thing with him moving forward. And I think they got a nice 1-2 punch with Robinson and Eckler back there. So he doesn't have to feel like the pressure's all on him. I know he's only got one receiver, Scary Terry, who by the way was only had 6 catches for 22 yards. I don't know what they got to do, but they got to do something different. If Zach Ertz and Noah Brown, who's been in your offense for 2 games, or if they're your leading receivers, like, you got to figure it out. He's the best offensive player on your team. You got to get him going. You got to get him involved. 6 catches on 8 targets for 22 yards is not going to cut it.
From one rookie quarterback to another, Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers 13-6. Another game I don't have a ton on, Tyler, but I do want to talk about Bo Nix. This is back-to-back weeks. I know he's a rookie. I know it's all brand new. Everything is very fast compared to college right now for him. And you're going against TJ Watt, Mike Tomlin's Pittsburgh Steelers. It's not easy. But that throw when they were down 10-0, and they absolutely needed points at that point in the game. And he just throws it just to throw it, take a chance, middle of the end zone, gets picked off. Not even. Just an awful decision. And it's like you need points in that situation. You hadn't had any. Your team doesn't have any momentum. And now you're finally going down the field. You can't make that decision. And this is just a very, very sloppy game. I mean, stat sheet, he finished with 246 yards passing. And it's like there were some plays where you see it. You could see, the arm talent, the accuracy, the ability. But the decision-making, Bo Nix, is not there right now. And Sean Payton has to be frustrated with it because it's like they were so fed up with Russell Wilson these last couple of years. Sean Payton was so fed up with him last year. He wanted him out of the building. Are you telling me Russell Wilson, though, is playing worse than that these first 2 weeks of the season? Based off what he looked like last year, I don't think so. And I know there's going to be growing pains. We don't expect rookie quarterbacks to light it up, their first 2 games in the league. Totally get that. But that defense kept them in the game yesterday, and they gave it away. They gave it away with turnovers. So another thing, they're not getting the run game going in Denver. Javonte Williams, 11 carries for 17 yards, averaging 1.5 a carry. Jaleel McLaughlin had 3 carries for 6 yards. So, again, Bo Nix has to make better decisions, but how are you helping him? How are you helping him, dropping him back 35 times? This is another situation where, like the Colts and Packers game, the game was never out of reach. You never had to drop back that many times. Your leading rusher was Bo Nix with 4 carries for 25 yards, and your top running back had 17. Not a good recipe for your young rookie quarterback, and it's surprising to me, Tyler. It's surprising to see Sean Payton manage him like this and kind of just let him go out there and make these mistakes the way he is. It's like he's got this foolish pride that he wants Bo Nix to go out there and prove to everybody like he's the guy. He's the Sean Payton drafted him for a reason. We replaced Russell Wilson for a reason. It's like it's not going to work, man. You got to ease him into this, and his confidence can't be too high after his first 2 starts in the league. But Steelers, they do what the Steelers do. They make it ugly. Defense plays great, and the offense just does enough. Manage the game. Justin Fields out there just managing the game, and then you get a win. I do want to see Justin Fields. He threw an absolute dime on a play that got called back. He was rolling right, and he threw it to Pickens. And that ball just couldn't have been in a better spot. That was pretty. That was a pretty throw by Justin Fields.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it didn't count, but go ahead.
He had 2 big plays to Pickens in that game that got called back. Pickens has done well through the first 2 games, and he's had, I think, 4 plays that have all been big plays that have been called back. So he could even have like a lot better stats than what he's got right now. But I love Pickens though. I just love ton of potential. The kid's a stud. I think once Russell Wilson comes back, you could see him actually go off, unless Justin Fields continues to take strides and steps forward and they stick with him. Maybe, but yeah, I mean, some of these plays, if they don't get called back, then we're not even talking about it. So either way, we knew this one was going to be ugly. We knew this one was going to hit like this. This total couldn't be low enough for this game, and you just had the feeling it was going to be one. Like, the Broncos defense, I think, is better than I expected them to be. But Sean Payton's got to figure it out offensively. Like, if you told me this week Malik Willis was going to have to throw the ball 35 times, no way the Packers win. If Malik Willis has to throw the ball 35 times, you're not winning that football game. If Bo Nix has to throw the ball 35 times, you're not winning the football game. He should be throwing it 20, 24 times. You should be running the ball just as much. Maybe even closer to 30. They have to figure the run game out. This was I didn't see much of, and when I go back and watch it, we'll see if it's just the line's not getting any push or whatever the case is. Because Javonte Williams is a back that a lot of people liked coming into the league, and I think he still does have good potential to be a good back, but it just seems like every year he just is underwhelming. So I'd like to see them get him going more. Bo Nix, Sean Payton he'll have him figure it out. Just, again, it's only his second game, so I don't want to overreact too much. We know these young players are going to make some bad decisions here and there, but if it becomes an early trend, to echo what you said, it's not a good recipe for success. So this game is what we thought it was. Steelers cover. Let's go.
And the under.
And the under. Yep.
Next, Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs. Boy, was this a great one. This was keeping us alive in that late window. 26-25, the Chiefs pulled off. I think there's a lot to unpack with this game, but going to try to sum it up the best it can. I think Joe Burrow, it was impressive based on what we saw last week and what our expectations were and our doubts were going into this game. I thought it was pretty promising the way Joe Burrow played against that defense. Got to get the run game going, Cincinnati. This is back-to-back weeks. This week, Zach Moss was your leading rusher with 34 yards on 12 carries. Chase Brown added 31 on 4 carries. And I feel like Zach Taylor, these first 2 weeks of the season, has just really abandoned the run game and put it all on Burrow and that protection and these receivers who, by the way, they're missing T. Higgins right now. And by the way, this is now back-to-back weeks where Jamar Chase has gotten locked up, and they're having to rely on Mike Gesicki as their leading receiver right now, which is great for them because I said it in the division preview episode. It'll be interesting to see if Gesicki steps into that role and really fills that tight end one void that the Bengals have been missing. And I think he's doing that. I think that's a positive for Cincinnati coming out of these first 2 games. But the Jamar Chase thing is alarming right now. He's not doing anything. There was that play where he got super frustrated with the officials, and then Burrow's trying to calm him down, and he's not having it with his quarterback. And that's when you lose me. If you're frustrated and you want to take it out, you want to yell at the ref for a second or whatever, let it be what it is. But when your quarterback comes over and tries to calm you down, and then you got shit to say to him and you want to shove him off when he's just trying to keep the team together and keep you cool, keep the offenses one, and keep them focused on what's important, putting points on the board, that's when you lose me. I think that I just don't know about the mental state of Jamar Chase right now with this whole contract situation. I think things are starting to boil over a little bit. And now they're 0-2. Do they get T. Higgins back this week? Do they not? One thing I will say, though, is Louis Anarumo, he is the Mahomes stopper. If there is one coordinator in this league that can put a game plan out there to stop Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs, it is Louis Anarumo. He proves it time and time again, Tyler. He held Mahomes to 151 yards, and they picked him off twice. It was not a sharp game by Patrick Mahomes at all, again, against the Bengals. So it's like that's such a that has to make you feel so good as a Bengals fan that you can hang with that team, the team going for a three-peat right now, every single time you play them. But it's like you can't figure out the other stuff. And then when there is a chance to put them away, you get called for a late PI. Chiefs go down, kick a game-winning field goal to beat you. And that's just demoralizing to put you 0-2 after you played such a great game. I do want to get your thoughts on that PI. I think I've kind of covered everything from the game. I do want to say Cam Taylor-Britt, oh my goodness. That interception he had, that's the play of the week. Win, lose, draw, I don't care. That catch was absurd. You might not see a better catch from a D-back, like a better play. That was unreal. But to talk about that pass interference call, I know it's easy to get pissed off about it because it's the Chiefs, and it just seems like they get away with everything. They get every call, this and that, and it's how it felt with the Patriots too. He ran through him. He ran through that receiver early. It was clearly pass interference. If that play was at any other point, any other time in the game, it's undoubtedly a pass interference. Nobody's questioning it. But because it was 4th and 15, game on the line, and they threw the flag, then it's a whole big deal. I think people are making too much of that just because the Chiefs thing. But the tough one to swallow for the Bengals, and they're going to have to get it going here because starting out 0-2, putting yourself in a hole in that deep AFC.
Yeah.
Also, Pacheco's out now, so they're going to have to rely on P. Ryan, Carson Strong, and Carson Steele. Yep. He'll be a household name soon enough.
Yeah, P. Ryan. He's the McKinnon replacement. I think he'll be all right. But yeah, the PI call is what it is. It was one of those that was, if you want to say it's bang bang, sure. Was it PI though? In my opinion, yeah, it was. Does it suck that it was called in that situation? Yeah, it's unfortunate. If that was, if that was the Cowboys playing the Chiefs and that was called on them, would I be pissed? Of course I would. I'd be pissed at both. I'd probably be saying the same shit. Here we go. Mahomes and the Chiefs getting another call when they need it. And, but, it doesn't just come down to one call. It doesn't just come down to one play. It's a whole game. I get it. It ultimately led to the defeat, but there's other things to take away from the game. It's not just one penalty. So either way, I think that it was encouraging to see that offense look a lot better than they did the week before. Josevic can't be. He's not going to keep it up all year. He can't be your number. Him and Gesicki can't be your two best. Like, they just can't be. Jamar Chase, they got to figure it out with him. And if that contract situation is really playing that much of a toll, then they need just fucking pay the guy. I don't understand what the holdup is either. You know what I mean? Like, we see all these other guys that are getting paid. I think Jamar Chase is a year ahead of schedule. I think he still has a team option for next year. So,
the owner, dude.
Right? Yeah. We know he's gonna get paid. Yeah. Who knows what his asking price is? Maybe it's absurd, and they're offering him 34 a year, and he won't take it. We don't know until we know. But either way, they have to figure out how to get him back to what and who we know he can be, which is one of the best receivers in this league. Until then, they're going to continue to struggle in the pass game. 0-2, and like you said, in the deep AFC, it's going to be tough. But the best thing that they have going for them is that the Steelers are 2-0, leading the division, and the Ravens are 0-2. Really, that's who you're worried about. You're worried about the Ravens. They're 0-2. And then you're worried about the Browns if Deshaun Watson starts to look really good, and he's not there yet. So I don't think you have to worry about the Browns at this point. Their main concern is the Ravens, who have their own concerns. So this division right now, who we thought would be kind of like almost a one-man race, but the Ravens would be, the Bengals would be right behind the Ravens. It's wide open right now at this point. It's still very, very early. We're only through 2 weeks, but I don't know. There's a lot to figure out in this division.
All right, capping off with these primetime games. Sunday Night Football, Houston Texans beat the Chicago Bears 19-13. Notes from this game: this Houston Texans team is dangerous. They're young. They're hungry. They're feisty. And they want what's theirs out there. They are playing very physical football on the defensive side of the ball. And their offense is, O-line looks good. Stroud, all signs are pointing to, there not being a sophomore slump, him just playing like he did last year, getting better. Because there's no signs of that to me right now. With all these new weapons that he's got to play with, it's like they didn't even get the run game going on the Chicago defense either. And I know they had to ask more of their defense this game than they will in most games. And the defense stepped up to the challenge. They made life absolute hell for Caleb Williams in his first game on the road in the NFL. Prime time. No time. His offensive line was getting blown off the ball in that game and just not even giving the kid a chance out there. So felt bad for him, seeing him have to deal with that. But Texans are scary. If you look at that defense and see, because when we were doing the division previews, we were talking up the offense, and it's like the defense really like the improvements they made, really like the young players that they've drafted in there, especially Derek Stingley, arguably the best corner in the league at this point. Both sides of the ball, this team matches up with anybody in the league. I feel like they could take it to anybody right now. And the Chicago Bears defense, they played their asses off, I thought, on Sunday night. And the only thing that beat them was CJ Stroud doing CJ Stroud things. I think the Bears were in the right sets. I feel like they were calling the right kinds of plays, but Stroud was just, finding a way, escaping pressure, buying time, and then making a throw downfield, across his body, whatever. Just throws you don't see quarterbacks typically make and get away with it. He finds a way to do it. He's special, and this, like I said, this team is hungry right now. Chicago Bears. I'm not concerned with Caleb Williams like other people are concerned. I'm concerned with him staying healthy more than anything, with the way this offensive line looks right now, because it doesn't look good. They're not giving him time to develop anything downfield and just feel comfortable in the pocket right now, because, like I said, he was running for his life on Sunday night.
I think that if you're worried about Caleb Williams, then you're not looking at the right things. There's more to it here. It's not just Caleb, but I think you're like, if you're a Bears fan, it's almost encouraging. They extremely lucky to win that week 1 game. You're probably thanking Will Levis for helping you out there, but Caleb Williams going against that Tennessee D, who we actually like that unit as a whole. We think that they have a good defense, and they're a lot better than what people probably perceived them to be early before the season started. And then you go against this Texans group, prime time on the road in week 2. Like, that's a tough 1-2 punch to start off the year for Caleb. And I think that, he doesn't have all the yards and the completion percentage. And I get it. His, yards per attempt is extremely low. They got to figure it out, right? Eberflus and that staff have got to figure it out. Get Keenan Allen, O'Dunes, get those guys healthy. You have Cole Kmet still. Don't forget about him. He can be a good tight end. And they did get Swift going a little more in the passing game, which by the way, I took a very bad beat in that one. A little same game parlay, got the under, got the spread right. I had Swift over 25, and when I looked in the third quarter, he was at 29. I'm like, bet. As long as these hold, as long as the Bears can cover 9, I gave a slight tease to their 6. I was like, as long as they can cover 9, I'm good. I wake up in the morning. No, I didn't even know. I looked later that night after the game was over. I was still up, actually. And I look and everything covered, but I didn't win the bet. I'm like, what the hell? I look, said Swift didn't get the yardage. I went back and watched, and there was like a swing pass to the right. He got blown up for -5. Lose it. He got 24 yards. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So, that was a kick in the dick at midnight. But I don't know. It's early yet. I like what the Bears have. They have a good defense. They just got to figure it out in the trenches. They got to figure it out in the trenches, and the more that they can keep Caleb Williams in the pocket with a clean pocket and give him time to read, like the kid, you've already seen it from him. Super talented. He just, needs to get a little bit more time and notches under his belt, repetition. He'll get it going.
We've had some bad beats these first couple weeks of the season. And it's like, poof, slap in the face. Yep, we're back. But good point about Cole Kmet. You got Gerald Everett too. I feel like they're not utilizing the tight ends enough in Chicago right now. I think that, like, if you're going to go out and put all of this into the tight end room that you have, where's the result of that? Where's the production? Like, we saw Cole Kmet last season. He was making big plays for Chicago. So I'd like to see him get going, and Gerald Everett as well.
Captain, by the way.
Last game, Monday Night Football. Talked about it earlier. Gwame Changing play, the Saquon drop. Other than that, thought this was a very sloppy game. First half, very underwhelming from the Falcons offense specifically. And then I thought the Eagles were really missing A.J. Brown's presence out there as well. They were able to get Saquon going, and then the Falcons were able to get Bijan going. But like I said, there was just not a lot going on at all first half of this game. And it was kind of one of those games where kind of like the Ravens, where you just expected the Ravens to find a way to pull it out no matter how ugly and sloppy it got, and just like slowed down. The game was late. You expect them to pull it off. That's how I felt with the Eagles. I was like, oh, they're just going to find a way to win this game, you know. First down after first down, tush push when needed, run the clock, and go home with a win to 2-0. But obviously that's not what happened. It comes down to the final drive that dictated everything. Kirk Cousins going down the field and beating them. And this is a pro Kirk Cousins podcast for sure. Big fans of Kirk Cousins. So great to see him get his first win. And big thing was he didn't turn the ball over last night. And that was going to be a concern, was with that front for the Eagles. They ended up only getting to him once last night, Tyler. So we talked up that front a lot. O-line did their job. Offensive line for Atlanta did their job last night. Is a little concerning what the Eagles passing game looked like. But then again, A.J. Brown wasn't there, so I don't want to put too much into that. And then, of course, we've already gone over Sirianni's decision, Saquon's drop.
Yeah, kind of a lot in this game. On both sides. Like, one thing I was looking for from the Falcons offense was like, how are you going to get Drake London more involved? And I think they tried to do that. It's easy for them to key in on one guy. I think when your number two receiver is Ray McLeod, but still we're waiting for Pitts to get more involved too. Like, there's still a lot with this offense that is undeveloped, and I think we'll start to see it, more towards the middle of the season as they are able to build more chemistry and figure things out. And Kirk's able to get back in his groove, but at least you can see it from the run game, and I think that from the against that Eagles front, which is very tough, it's encouraging. Obviously, they had to settle for a lot of field goals, and that's not, you're not really going to beat the Eagles that way. You're not going to beat good teams if you have to settle for field goals. You can't trade touchdowns for field goals. But the thing that I love about Kirk Cousins is, like, right after the game, and I texted you and Todd, right after the game, I forget who was interviewing him, and she was like, hey, from last week, basically, you received a lot of heat for your play. Blah, blah, blah. And most quarterbacks in that situation, most players would just be like, yeah, you just got to ignore the hate and just focus on football and blah, blah, blah. But Kirk, he goes, you know what? Yeah, I agree. Even tonight, he goes, I could have been better. I need to put my team in better situations. And he just takes full accountability and is like, you know what? They're not wrong. I need to be better. And he does. He did. He needed to be better. But he nutted up on that last drive. He was 0 for his last 8, I believe it was, game-winning drives to either tie it up or win. He was 0 for his last 8, but he goes down in like 5 plays with no timeouts, and obviously throws that touchdown to London, who burned Slay. Like, it wasn't like an amazing route. He just went faked inside and cut out right and cut back to the sideline to the pylon, and Slay was just he was lost. So
Big play.
That was sweet though. Yeah, that was sweet though. I needed that for a parlay to salvage my week, and they came through. I thought I was toast. So that was huge. So Saquon, he saved my week. But that's the thing from the Eagles. The one thing I want to touch on there is, like, I thought they played overall a good game. And I don't hate that play call, because if he catches that, no one's talking about it. But here we are, right? you're going to get a little bit of heat because you could have just ran the ball. Why didn't you? You've been gashing them all game. Why didn't you run the ball? Like, I don't hate that play call, but I hate the sense that, or I hate when you go back and you watch that first half, Saquon looked like he was getting 10 yards every single carry. And they just, for whatever reason, didn't want to stick to the run. They just kept wanting to throw the ball. I get you want a little diversity. You want to mix it up. But at some point, if you're gashing them for 8 to 10 yards of run, why don't you just do it the whole way down the field? Who cares if you don't throw the ball? The Packers just ran the ball 55 times. They got a W, So that's the one knock I have on the Eagles is why are you abandoning the run? And I think that was one of the things from McCarthy when they decided to part ways with Kellen Moore was Kellen Moore didn't run the ball when he thought they should have been running the ball. Sometimes he got away from it and wanted to throw it in situations where McCarthy felt like, hey, we should have been running the ball there. And that's why he took over play call and the whole nine, right? So who knows? Was that Kellen Moore? Was it Sirianni? I don't know. Do I hate the play call? No. But should you have just ran it up the middle and then probably tush pushed if you didn't get it? Yeah. Yeah, I think you should have.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Exactly how I felt about it. I should have mentioned that in the beginning is it's a good play call if it works, just like any other play. And then it's a bad play call if it doesn't. It was there. They didn't expect Saquon was there. He put it on him. He just dropped it. I just don't understand like hanging Sirianni for that. Like, yeah, they don't have timeouts. You can take a big chunk off. But Saquon catches that ball, 9 out of 10 times? So, is what it is. But what a game-changing play, as we said.
Yeah.
But that is it for our Week 2 recap. If you're on YouTube right now, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We will be back later this week with our Week 3 preview and big juicy bets. Goodbye.
Appreciate y'all. Peace.
When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing each other like a rock and roll tour. When I come to your city, I'm a new score. Broke your high score soon as I step through the door. Tryna stack my paper up like a bookstore. Money kissing